Just got home from work and it did just finish the 48th tournament. I let it run through the 49th tournament just so that we're just before the Apex tournament. Again, this is the results for tournament number 49. And I have to say, the white decks are crushing it. Look at that. If you'll remember, the blue decks started with a 110 tournament lead. The green and blue decks just absolutely dominate all the other decks, squishing to oblivion. But you can see here that the white decks are doing better than the blue decks are. They're just second only to the green. And the red and black decks are low, which we expect because I'm impressed with that. Sorry about that, my tablet was not on Do Not Disturb. So I'm really curious to see what the white decks are running. After the Apex tournament, I'm going to have a look at the white decks just because that's insane. We're only 50 tourneys in, so these decks shouldn't be as evolved as the green and blue decks were last time we looked at them, but should be interesting nonetheless. So, like I did with the last Apex tournaments, I'm going to run the first round and the last round, just because I want to see how it loads the match win percentage of each round that it loads. And I did remember set max games to 1, so we should be good to go. I also rearranged it so that the library of the AI will be a little bit better to see. I still haven't made them pop up automatically. That's another little feature that I want to do. Oh my god! And the matches are over before I can even pull things up. Blue deck running all the usual good stuff. My Java is frozen because I can't even extend this. This is stuff that it's cast, this is stuff that it has in its hand. Sidious Will, it doesn't seem to like. But I did cast it. Either cast it or discard it for some reason. I can't think of too many discard effects in Kaladesh. Other Squall Ancient. It will cast Other Squall Ancient, but it doesn't use it as... It won't use the secondary ability, but it does get the energy for it. I've seen board states like this, with one side had 2 Other Squall Ancients on the board, had 150 energy, and wouldn't bounce everything to hand, even though it would win with its Other Squall Ancients. But again, the computer doesn't think like a human, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this. This is Dex versus equal skill. There's no skill difference between these opponents. Bender's Skill Hulk. Bender's Skill Hulk is being used. Just got cast and got cast just before the game ended. A lot of elf lords. Elf lords are probably the dominant. That's the other thing I want to see, is the dominance of tribe. Lots of Attune with Ether in the deck. Black is running. I saw Harsh Scrutiny, which is a good start. Still has over 60 cards. There's 65 cards left in the deck, not including what's been cast already. It's got Cataclysmic Gearhulk, but Cataclysmic Gearhulk I happen to know is one of the ones that's flagged as AI do not use. Most board wipes are, just because it doesn't know how to board wipe, so I don't know if Cataclysmic Gearhulk is actually being cast, or if it's just a dead card. It could be just being cast and just hit or miss what it nukes. This is just about to end. Oh, this is over. Here we go. There's that one. Oops. All right. Haven't seen a red deck on the bottom yet. It's using Syndicate Trafficker, even though I don't think it will sacrifice artifacts. I'd be very surprised if the AI sacrifices artifacts. It's using it with animation though, which is a very similar combo to what we've seen played on the deck, on the channel, on my other channel. Huh, this is a green tribe leader. He's favored. He favors blue. He favors white and red. So I expect him to lead Boros, but he's a little bit weird for green. He doesn't hate green. He just doesn't favor green. I've seen this guy dominate red decks too, because he has. I don't think he has any hated colors. I think he's got one hated color, but he's kind of a wizardy type, so I let him do whatever, and he's played red decks in the last simulation I did. Oh, and that's it for that round. Okay, so close that. So I want to see what loaded. 6 black decks, which is fine. Remember, they were under 6, so 6 is the minimum. 87 to 50. Blue. I also want to see 56, which is probably that Maniac Mage that we saw a whole bunch of times. That seems to be the dominant color. There's still a tier 0 deck in here. These looks like the best. If there's a 2 would be a dominant color, it would be, or a dominant player, it would be 40. That's probably the, no, sorry, for blue. That's probably the thing that looks like a Frost Giant. Red 59 is uber dominant for some unknown reason. White, I see a lot of 10s, which is probably, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the Elephant. Green is probably the Lord. We see a bunch of 48s. Yeah, look at this. 91 is the top deck, 83. I want to have a look at this 117 AF15, assuming it does well in the tournament. It beat the black deck, so yeah, it's doing a good shot at winning this thing off the bat, and it lost one game though, so it's going to be pared down. Again, all white, blue, and green up here. 1 red. Yeah, so this will be interesting to see how this shakes down. I'm going to stop recording here. We'll see you just before the final round. We'll see how this shakes out with all 5 colors. All right, so we're at the end of the 5th round, tournament number 50, and here it is, tournament number 50, because it hasn't changed yet. This is what we expect to see: green, blue decks. This black deck is a little bit up there too. I'm curious to see what that deck's all about. But nothing really hinky based on our expectations. This black deck is 254. Maybe it just got lucky and didn't. Oh, it just beat a red deck. So it probably just got lucky and hasn't faced any green or blue decks. I don't like this this matching system because decks can skirt by not playing the top decks. I have an idea for a new matching system that I want to try out, but I'm going to work on it over the weekend. So let's get into the final round. Oh, I should probably change the max games back to 1 per one at a time. All right. Black versus red. White versus green. This saw Olivia briefly there, sequestered stash. And this is pretty much standard from what we see from green. Saw a Dynavolt Tower in there. Yeah, right there. Self-assembler. Trumpeter. Fairgrounds Trumpeter, I'm surprised has lasted this long. Usually that gets taken out, even though green tends to slide towards tokens. Actually, this one isn't using the token strategy. It's funny, the decks that don't use tokens use the Trumpeter. Do use the tokens, take the Trumpeter out. I don't understand that. But like I said, these decks are results orientated, and there's a lot of diversity left in the decks. When the decks start becoming more and more fine-tuned and more same-ish, I expect things to change a little bit. And again, we're also seeing the worst matchups first. The lower this number is, the higher the pairing is. Morbid Curiosity. The last simulation that I did, the black decks were leaning towards Midnight Oil. Almost all the black decks were running Midnight Oil. It was interesting, considering that I don't think I've ever seen Midnight Oil played by humans. I see a Combustible Gearhulk. Where did that go? It's in his hand. Has got enough mana for it. Or she's got enough mana for it. There's a Combustible Gearhulk in the graveyard. Probably wanted discarding it for some reason. Our Genius. Revolutionary Rebuff. Just got cast. He's a little bit land screwed. Now he's okay, but he was land screwed there for a bit. Otherworks Hub. Let's see. Torch Glove is another card. Actually, it seems to like equipment. Torch Gloves, the swords, and the glasses. I don't remember what they're called. The glasses that equip to artificers. Wait, I'm actually going to pause this for a moment to have a look at what these white decks are doing. Glint Sleeve Artisan is not going to cast. Puzzle, that's where it's getting all the servos from, are these puzzle knots. There's also Servo Exhibition. Lots of Servo Exhibition, holy smokes. It's not going to cast that because it's Fabricate. I don't know why it doesn't like Fabricate, but Impeccable Timing. Lots of ways of removing creatures. Looks like white is going Control-y, and none of the other decks are doing Control-y. All the other decks are going aggro. So white is literally the only control decks, and because none of the other decks are control decks, the decks aren't evolving to handle control, they're evolving to handle aggro, which just means be faster at aggro. So I think that's why the white decks are doing really well, is because they're the only control decks in a city full of aggro. That's my theory. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out over time, if white continues to dominate and if they continue to be a little bit on the aggro side. This is a green deck. I keep thinking he's white because he's favored white and he's neutral green, so he's not supposed to be running a green deck, but that's fine. Blasting Defense. I saw Nissa out there somewhere. I don't know where it went. I actually think this is going vertically. These are the top 3 cards. Yeah, that's how it works. These are the top 3 cards, and then these ones. I just thought I saw Emrakul. I must have been mistaken. Servo exhibition. Wow, those servo exhibitions to mass out. White seems to be the biggest one that gets into board state stalls just because of servo exhibition and the puzzle knots. Create a bunch of servos to block with. Blue, also Whirler Maker is the other card that's bad for that. These servos are 3/3. Oh yeah, Chief of the Foundry. Wow. Wow. Yeah, that'll do it. So many servos. Servos versus servos and Thopters. This is going to be a draw. I'm a little surprised considering he's got a better board state. He could attack, but he's not going to. Servers and does that say servers and Thopters you control get +1/+1? That is amazing. That is amazing. Yeah, that's what it says. Servers and Thopters you control get +1/+1. Wow. That is why white decks are winning. They're doing a servo. They're doing servo tribal. So Chief of the Foundry and Master Trinket and a bunch of servos. Fantastic. I want to see that deck. I want to see that deck built. Somebody build that deck. Run black for Puppet Master, Marionette Master. That would be a good deck. Yeah, none of the black decks are currently running Midnight Oil, but they will. Guaranteed, as soon as one gets Midnight Oil, they all will. With Ether Creeping Mold. 1 of 21. Blue versus green. Nothing super fantastic in this deck. It's just efficient, I guess. And there we go. That's that round. So here's what it does. It kills the weakest one, breeds the weakest one, steals attack from one of its opponents. In this case, it's an artifact, so it works. Sometimes it'll steal one that's the wrong color, and it just ignores it. It creates a child, and when it creates a child, it does mutations. So basically, it bred these two decks together, took random genes, and then it performed these mutations. Added Madcap Experiment, removed Overcheck Dragster. Add a hijack, remove a rare spec. These are all true. This means these genes are active. I don't know if this is happening in the primary or the secondary though. It propagated, it copied a demolish. It already had one demolish. It propagated another one into a null. Propagated a null into a null, which is useless. It added a new Territorial Gulger in place of a mountain. It propagated a Madcap Experiment. It took in place of a. So it already had one of these. Put it instead of one of these. This is, I know that either the top half or the bottom half are all the same, either the active helix or the inactive helix. Propagated Renegade Fighter, taking out a mountain. These are the rarities, obviously. I added rules that emphasized it would propagate rares more often than commons. And this isn't a false, so it added Brazen Scourge to a null, but it's not an active. I'm pretty sure these are 0 and these are 1 in the array, and 1 is the active gene. It inverted a gene, so it used to be Thriving Grub and Mountain, because there are 2 active. That's what this gap is. All the rest of these were inactive, so instead it reversed the order. So this Harness Lightning and Mountain that are at the end are now at the beginning. So that's a true gene. So that's a gene that's active. Whether it's primary or secondary, I don't know, but it's active. So basically, it took out a Thriving Grubs and Mountain, put in a Lightning, Harness Lightning in a Mountain. Then it did a population collate, or this is just a report. It reports that there's 22 out of 30, and then it killed 1, which is the one that it killed up here. Sometimes this is just, I had a problem where the population was expanding really rapidly, and I was trying to deal with that, and I've solved it. So more like is when it basically all the rest of the decks try to become more like it. I'll usually do that with people who are the same. So these are all 59s. Not all of them. It can do it when it's not the same. So basically, this is the one that won. This is the one that it's copying, and this is the final. So first of all, because there's 8 here and 4 there, it takes 1 away. And then it took out the Ripper and Tiger and put in a Tomb of Ether to make it more like this, 1 step more like that. Same thing here. It took out something further up. One of these things is not like the other. Okay, here it is. Ether Hub. Took out the Ether Hub and put in the Appetite from the actual. Notice how it copies from the same index. And that's intentional. Basically, if you do this enough time, the two genes will be indistinguishable. Only for the active genes and only for the primary. It only changes the active cards in the deck. It won't change the inactive genes. Wow, this one has a lot of nulls, but that's not what it replaced. It replaced nope. It replaced Appetite for the Natural with Creeping Mold. And it was at 2, now it was at 1, now it's at 2, so it added the card to this deck, and so this forest is also added to the deck. So this it copied the Larger Than Life, took out the Ornamental Courage. It also wound up taking out the Workshop Assistant because it went from 4 to 3. And so that's basically how it does that. This black deck, wow, made the top 4. That's pretty impressive. So let's have a look at these decks. We're looking for Green Pride. It's a Generation 1 deck, so we've probably already seen this, to be honest. 1-3C. 3 Creeping Molds, a Caliprowler, Thriving Rhino, a single Ovia. One Ovia seems to be about optimal. I usually don't see more than 1. The reason being, I think, is because Ovia has a tendency to create board states that stall out. I did see a deck last time that had 3, but it didn't survive very long. Tomb with Ether seems to be a 4 of. Larger Than Life seems to be a 4 of. Creeping Mold, I've never seen this many Creeping Molds in a deck. A little disappointed that I took the regular art. Last time I ran this, the Creeping Mold that all the decks were copying was the 7th edition one. I'm going to check out this 4. This is a different try. So this is 48. This one's 50. 4_12. Yeah. So this one, we're seeing more Wily Bendars. 4 of Creeping Mold. Still got the 2 Evasion and Larger Than Lives. Terrain Elemental. Terrain Elemental is actually a fairly popular card by these decks. I mean, a 3/2 for 2. Fantastic card. right now in Standard, this is being greatly greatly surpassed by Sylvan Advocate. But this is fantastic. It's way above curve. I remember when Unison Corsair 3/3 for 2, or sorry, 3/3 for 3 in Future Sight was like, oh my god, this is insane. The power creep is real. Now, yeah, now we get 3/2 vanilla for 2. It's not as tough as a Unison Corsair, but I would run this over Unison Corsair unless I'm playing some weird Centaur deck, which I don't think is a thing. Pima Outrider, it needs to take out because of Fabricate. That's one thing that, I'm going to put these here. That's one thing that this current generation thing isn't very good at doing, is it doesn't know which individual cards are bad. It tends to just kind of play whatever. Basically throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. I want to I have ideas on making it so that basically the winning decks will keep track of which cards it won with, and then the losing decks will keep track of which ones it lost with, and then it will create like an algorithm, possibly like the same way I'm doing with this, where it's the best of the last 20 times that created a new deck. And it will just kind of have tendencies, and that way cards like this will eventually have negatives and hopefully get taken out of decks, because these are dead cards. It won't even cast cards with Fabricate right now, which is unfortunate because some of the cards are pretty good. So let's have a look at this black deck. I wasn't going to load the black and red decks, but this deck made the top 4. I don't know if it just lucked out and 2_54. Just didn't fight any of the green, white, or blue decks. That's one of the things I want to change. I want to make sure that all the decks of one color play all the decks of another color, if that makes sense. But I'll work on that over the weekend. Lawless Broker is a pretty popular black card. I really want to see how black and green work together, because green really likes its +1/+1 counters, and black also seems to gravitate to cards that give +1/+1 counters. There's a sorcery that Diabolic Tutor. Nice. It's not showing the art for this, but 9th edition Diabolic Tutor. This is a card that the AI isn't supposed to use. I don't know how well it runs that. Accomplished Automaton is another card that it won't cast. Fabricate 1. I've watched them. This is when I first suspected that Fabricate was a problem, because I've seen this in deck's hands the last time. I was like, why isn't it casting that? But it seems to be a thing. Every one that we've watched, pretty much every deck that we've watched frequently has Fabricate cards that it just isn't casting, which is unfortunate. Oh, there's Midnight Oil in the sideboard. It just needs to be flipped in the main deck. The blue deck that did the best in this current tournament may not be the best overall, but the one that did the best in the Apex match up. 2_54. I want to create a UI that I can just click on these decks. I can click on I want to sort it by family, and then I can click on the family and I can see the decks based on their rating. That's going to be a longer term project, and then I don't have to dig through all the I'm in Blue Pride. Oh, I was looking at the wrong one. 7_FEC. We're at Generation 8. We're at Generation 9. Wow. I think this is almost as far as I've been, because I've seen up to Generation 10. Gearseeker Serpent, accomplished. Gearseeker Serpent is cool because it, since we're using only Kaladesh, it's playing a lot of artifacts, so that helps. We also saw the black card that's to gain life for each artifact you control, same kind of deal. With Aetherflux Reservoir, being an artifact, and also, what's the other one? Inventor's Fair. Every single deck has the ability to gain life, which is one of the reasons why it devolved into board state stalls. Revolutionary Buffet uses Thriving Turtle. Blue loves Thriving Turtle. I watched this one match. It was hilarious. It was 2 blue decks. This was in the last run, in the new run. Actually, this is I changed some of the. This is before I added a feature where when it builds. Actually, it'd probably be better just to show you what I'm talking about here. If I go into whichever color, doesn't matter. There's a card pool that gets saved every round. This is what it looks like in the program. Oh, it must have just been taken out. So that's a bad example. Let's grab the red one, I guess. Okay, so one of the things that it does is, well, as I was saying in the first video, it opens packs. It adds packs to this list, and this takes out the ones that are the wrong color. Also allows colorless, and then it'll add a few bonus ones, which includes the dual lands and includes the cards from the Planeswalker packs that are legal and standard. And then what it does is, if this first line isn't a basic land, it will make this first line a basic land. That way, every time it draws a new card for its deck, there will always be at least one land available to play. This one at the end is the art index. Most cards only have one art available in the index, since I think Alliances was the last set that I know of. Maybe Homelands was the last set that had multiple art for things. It started in Fallen Empires, I believe. Maybe the Dark. I think Fallen Empires was the first one that had multiple arts for different cards. So it'll always see a land at the top there. What haven't we done yet? Oh yeah, the white decks. I want to see this white deck. What is this white deck doing? And like I said, I have a speculation that it's a control. 1_17. Wow, the white decks are already in Generation 4. It's only been 5 hours. Left work at 9:30. It's now 5 o'clock, so 7 hours-ish. Okay, so this is a buff. I'm going to do this over here. That's a buff. That's removal. That's control. That's a buff. It's temporary buffs. Control. Oh, there's control. Removal. Tokens. Can I move these down into another slot? Come on, move down, move down. Move down, move down, move down. Let's split this in half and then move it down. Okay. So we've got removal, we've got token generation, we've got more removal, we've got temporary buffs. Angel it won't cast because it's got Fabricate, unfortunately. That would be very good in its strategy though. This is just a cheap. This is just an efficient creature. Let's breathe for Angel. Oh my god. I've seen white decks have 2 of these, and it'll cast them, and it'll keep exiling the other Whisper. It'll just do an infinite combo between the 2 Whisper Angels, and it is insane. And it will keep doing that until the time runs out. Which is a good thing I have a time limit, because otherwise it would be pretty bad. This is energy, I guess. This is more energy. It's also protection. Fabricate doesn't work. Temporary buff, we'll put that under. Temporary buff. This is control if it's a Fairgrounds Warden. 9th Bridge is actually pretty good with Whisper. If there's 2 Whisper Angels and a 9th Bridge, the 9th Bridge will keep getting counters until it decides to end, and then it'll then swing with it, but it won't. Tassel Drummer is just an efficient blocker. This is removal, and these are good flyers. that have lifelink and vigilance. So yeah, that's pretty much its deck. Is just token spam and temporary buffs, and this one, there are no colorless cards here. I wonder if this pulled an immunity. What deck is this? 117? Immunity primary colorless, colorless. Holy smokes, it pulled immunity. Nice. So this deck is immune to colorless. How this works is it has, let's look at its secondary. So its secondary is red and green, and its primary is colorless and colorless. So what happens is it will have these genes where if they both match, and it's more likely when it generates this, it's more likely to select one that the avatar hates. So whichever avatar is number 30. But when it breeds, it could inherit ones that are different. And so I was saying, where is this the one with the Foundry Inspector, or is this the one with the Foundry Chieftain that gives +1 to artifacts, the servos? And there are no artifacts. And this Cogworker's Puzzle Knot is considered a white color identity. It's not considered colorless because of that one. It uses the commander rules. So there are no artifacts here except for the Cogworker's Puzzle Knot because it doesn't count. Also, the Gearhulks wouldn't count because they're not colorless. This is technically a colorless card, but not in terms of. It also has no non-basic lands that are not colored. Like it could use the one that are colored. Like I don't know. Like if there's a land that produces white and blue, that's not colored. That's white and blue. But it won't use Ether Hub. It won't use Sequestered Stash. It won't use Inventor's Fair because of that immunity to colorless. Immunity to colorless in a monocolored deck. Like if this had pulled immunity to white, it would be an all artifact deck, and it wouldn't be allowed to use weights the way the colorless decks are going to be. So it probably wouldn't spawn. It probably wouldn't do anything because there's only so many non-basic lands that produce colorless. But this deck is the one that won this tournament without having any ability to produce color decks. So this got to pass on its colorless, possibly. I mean, it's got the red-green. It's got the red-green in its secondary, and because of the double helix, it might not pass the immunity, but it's working for it. The immunity is working for it. There's no artifacts in this deck. Well, there's no colorless cards in this deck, and it worked out. So we haven't yet looked at the red deck. I'm not excited by it because red is not very well represented. 1_1 A6. It's got the Compulsible Gearhulk. That's pretty much the only thing that's going for it. This recording time is 45 minutes. This is going to be a long video unless I cut a whole bunch of stuff. But it's interesting to see. I'm really excited. This is running cheap at the Foundry. There's the Inventor's Goggles. Hijack, Chandra's, Fire Helix. Doesn't yet have Chandra. Yeah. So I'm gonna end the video here. I'm gonna let this run for a little bit longer. Then I'm gonna work on fixing the bug for the colorless decks so that we can get those in, and I'm going to add the feature for the rainbow decks. One of the things that I'm wanting to implement is that multicolor decks, when it creates a new deck, instead of creating a random deck, it's allowed to pick 2 random decks that share its colors, that have fewer colors. So 2-color deck can only pick monocolored decks, and a 2-color deck can only pick monocolored decks, and a 3-color deck could pick 1 or 2-color decks. And that kind of gives a leg up. It'll pick those decks and we'll breed them together. So it'll kind of leverage the existing knowledge of other tribes, but it will, because it's breeding 2 decks that have never been designed to work together, it could produce some really weird results. So that's the idea. I'm really looking forward to see how this expands, and we'll catch you when I have an update.